Today, I'll be covering every step you need to convert ordinary post-it notes into a miniature hardcover bound book just like this. Let's get started. Very simple to do. I'm going to use chipboard, some kind of standard sticky note pad. These are normally 3 by 3 inches. We need glue, something to apply the glue in an even layer. I'm going to use a brush, a cutter of some kind to cut through the chipboard, and any kind of paper or fabric that you like that you want to use to wrap your final cover. So I printed out some designs. I'll be using these. Okay, so these sticky pads come in many sizes. One of the most common are 3 by 3 inches, but the book cover, you want to make the card a little bit larger than 3 by 3 inches. 3 1/8, that'll work. In height, you want the book cover to stick out on the top and the bottom. And on the right side, you only want it to stick out on one side. In our design, we're going to put it right up against the spine on the left, kind of like a real book. So just imagine leaving these two gaps and about the same on this side. If you want exact dimensions, let me know in the comments below. If I have enough people interested, I'll put together a PDF, some kind of template that you can just print out and use it as a guide for cutting. That'll make it easy for you to just make this quickly. I'm going to be using this guide, which makes it extremely easy to not have to do any measurements. So take your chipboard. The chipboard doesn't need to be very thick. If you use something like a cereal box, double it up. Aim for about 1 to 2 millimeters thick, preferably smooth, so your paper looks nice and doesn't look wrinkled like it is on if you apply it on corrugated cardstock. There are some corrugated cards that are fairly smooth and not too thick. So if you want to use that, something like a shoebox material will work. That's rigid enough, but not too thick. Okay, so if you have something like this has the measurements already done. And the way I use it, line it up along the bottom edge, and if you press it a little bit, that'll make sure it's parallel, and just mark off this dimension. Cutting it pretty much right on the line. That'll give us the right height. You can try it a few times. You don't want it to be super snug in here, otherwise it won't drop in when we're gluing. Depending on how you mark your line, after a few times you'll get the feel for it if you should cut right on the line or a little to the right. And then repeat the same process. I have a rough edge, so I'm gonna discard that. I'm gonna work from this side. Now I'm pressing it down here, pressing it in this way, and I can mark my width. I'm going to do the small one next. The reason being, it's harder to hold a small piece by itself. So I'm going to put the small one in here. This is the trickiest one to line up, because you can't really press it down parallel. But the reason for that is I have a large piece of card here to hold. Last one. This one's easy again. There are many ways of doing this step. All of them will work just as well, so use whatever method seems easiest for you. As long as you get these 3 pieces and they drop in, that's all that matters. So if you have another way of doing it, that's fine as well. Just double check that they drop in okay. If you're off in any of them, you can just correct and redo. Alright, now with these pieces done, just set them aside for a little while. Take any material, any kind of paper or fabric that you want to use for the cover. I'm using this design that I printed out. Added a little design to the cover to turn this into a pad for to-do lists. And because I have something that I want to appear on the cover nicely centered, we're going to be actually gluing this upside down like this. And you can make a mistake and end up all misaligned at the end, right? This could end up here or here or here. So a trick you can use, line it up facing up, get it positioned where you would like to see it on the cover. So this will be the front cover. This panel is the front cover. And then use any marks to establish a reference point. So I'm going to use these center alignment marks, and I'm just going to cut away a little triangle. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And that pointing arrow will basically serve as an alignment point. So when I flip this over, I just line up the marks, and everything should line up in the end. If you really wanted to, you could cut all the way around this template, because that is the final size we're going to make. The problem with that is then you have to be perfect on every other step. on the gluing steps, you have to be perfect. Right now, if you make a little mistake and you shift a little bit, nothing's going to show at the end. And the final trimming will have enough material. It'll be trimmed evenly all around. That's the hardest part. Position this template, line up those marks. This should be pretty much where everything should go. And now I'm going to glue these. Use some scrap paper so you don't get glue on everything. It's easier if you put your glue in a jar instead of working out of a bottle. I'm going to take some glue and want to get a nice even layer across this without it being too thick. Don't want it too wet because that is going to cause the paper, the outer paper, and this card to wrinkle, to warp. So try to work fairly quickly if you can, because the thinner the glue is, the quicker it dries. You don't want it to dry on you. You want it to be wet enough to stick across the entire sheet, but not too wet that it starts to warp. Take that, and if you don't want to get glue everywhere, try to be careful. Double check your alignment, nothing has shifted, and then just carefully drop this in, press it down, get your next piece, and from this point on, you're basically just repeating the same steps. A little too much glue on that one. Keep like a lightly damp paper towel or something handy if you get any glue on your hands. Last one. Do be careful which way this is facing. One side is longer than the other. It only fits correctly one way. Okay, now that you have that, you'll notice it's starting to warp a little. This is because of the moisture in the glue. Once you've made sure you don't have any air bubbles in the outer cover, we're going to cut around this template on the outside. This will provide the right amount of excess paper to fold over and cover the edges. So I'm just going around the edges. If you're working without this kind of template, just put approximately 1/2 inch, 3/8 to 1/2 inch extra material around the outside. Double check again for any air bubbles. Get some extra scrap paper again. I'm going to start gluing around one edge of the paper and then keep moving away, so I have a clean spot as I glue all the edges. You can use your hand to fold this over, but if you use some kind of smooth edged tool or maybe a old credit card or something, it'll just help your edges be nice and clean and a little bit straighter, a little more professional looking. And especially in these areas here, press it in. You do have to be careful, depending on the kind of printer you have, if you're printing your own covers, that if the ink starts to smear a little bit, if you get glue in your hands or anything, just be very careful of that if you want to have a nice clean appearance at the end. Try to be careful that you don't get extra glue on anything. There's our covers outside. Now we're going to line it. I'm going to use this on the inside, and if you're doing this without a template, allow yourself a little bit of room for error when you glue this on the inside. So take this measurement on the outside and subtract a few millimeters all the way around the edge. If you have one of these templates, you can actually use the built-in marks, which on these outer edges tell you how much to space in the inner liner. So I'm going to flip this over. I want this corner. I'm going to flip it over, and using the same technique I use for the cardboard, basically bring this up, line it up with that outer corner, and just make marks where I will cut away. Line up those marks, cut, and this piece will be our liner inside. Make sure it's facing the right way. Be careful when gluing this, because as soon as you set it down, it's going to start sticking. So kind of plan ahead where you want it, about how much space is on the outside, so you don't end up gluing it at some skewed angle. Just to be careful, try to get that pretty close. That's where I'm going to try to get it. Make sure I don't put it anywhere where it already has glue. Okay, same thing. We apply glue on the paper, not this, because those extra edges, those overhanging edges, we don't want any glue on. And as you're applying glue, try not to let the paper move on this sheet, because the sheet has glue all over the surrounding edges, and you don't want that to smear on the finished side of the paper. So try to be careful and avoid moving it, and make sure you go all the way to the edges The edges are the first thing that are going to show when it peels. So try to cover those, and do try to make sure there are no dry spots in the middle either, because those will show up as air bubbles. All right, double check. Got a little bit of glue on my hand, so I'm not gonna really press this. Just wanna get it in place. The centers where I'm gonna start pressing. Center panel first, and these slots. We have to press down in these gaps and then work our way out. Work our way out. All right, slightly crooked, but once it's closed, no one's really gonna notice. So now, that is our completed cover. I'm going to use this yellow colored pad of Post-it notes, and now you see what I mean about there's a gap on the top and bottom and a little bit on this side. This edge here, again, from the outside, you want to work it in area on the spine, and if you create that detail, it just looks nice. You can glue the pad in facing this way if you want to peel them up vertically, or you can mount it right up against the spine, and that'll create more of a book. That's up to you. Either way works. Take a little glue. Depending on the kind of pad you have, you might have to take the back sheet off. You can either apply glue to the whole back of the pad or part of it, and then carefully set it in place. Double check the vertical alignment, evenly spaced on the top and bottom. And the last thing I would recommend is leave some weight on it. Put some kind of cardstock or something that will absorb the moisture above and below. You can use books, you can use weights, whatever you have. Keep some weight on it, let it dry overnight. That will create a nice, crisp, professional finish when it's done. If I let it dry on its own, you notice those covers are bending back. They're starting to curve. So by leaving weight on it, this will help it dry and flatten out and prevents it from curling. And there you go, the finished book. Makes a nice little gift. Dresses up these ordinary looking Post-it notes. If you just want to try this at home without using any special tools, let me know in the comments below. And if enough people are interested, I'll create a printable PDF that you can use to trace out the size of the cardstock you need and do this without requiring any special tools at all. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time. God bless.